Hello, everyone. It's Francis Widdowson here. Today, I would like to talk to you about Thompson Rivers University. And in, I guess it was May, at the George Jonas Freedom Award dinner, I referred to Thompson Rivers University as the worst university in Canada. Now, that was before the University of Winnipeg situation. And so Thompson Rivers University was just in the university's Hall of Shame. It didn't rise up to the level of the elite Hall of Shame, which, of course, the University of Winnipeg, it's going to be hard to surpass that categorization. But Thompson Rivers is doing its best to compete with Winnipeg for the worst university in Canada label. And the reason for this is on October 15th of this year, so this is about 3 days ago, it sent me in the mail a trespass notice because of the Spectrum Street epistemology session that we did on May 27th, 2025, which is about, I guess, 4 or 5 months ago. And we were there at Thompson Rivers because it was the fourth anniversary of the false claim made by the Kamloops Indian Band. Anyway, we had a great session at Thompson Rivers, and we had Jenna, who was a person who worked at Thompson Rivers, and Hal, and we talked about the claim. The remains of 215 children have been found, and we reached common ground that excavations would be needed. So it was a fantastic Spectrum Street epistemology session. So you can imagine my reaction when I got this letter in the mail from Thompson Rivers University. Anyway, I'm going to talk more about this trespass notice shortly, but just before I get into that, I wanted to give you a bit of background on why I was calling Thompson Rivers University one of the worst university in Canada. And the reason for that is because Thompson Rivers University pushed out of its institution economics professor Derek Pine. And Derek Pine was a very, very principled academic who was exposing the fact that many of his colleagues, including a number of administrators, were publishing in predatory journals, what's called predatory journals, and using those publications to get promotions and so on. And for people who don't know what predatory journals are, they are journals where you pay to have your article published in them. And they are known to be, I'm not sure if fraud is the right word to use, but certainly unethical to be using those publications as ways to pad your CV. Anyway, when Derek started talking about this publicly, he was charged with harassment and also at some point defamation. And his union is horrible. That's one of the reasons why Thompson Rivers is such a terrible university. Is their union is unbelievable. It's just an unbelievable union, and they did not defend him properly. And as a result of the treatment of Pine, the Canadian Association of University Teachers published a report castigating Thompson Rivers University. And anyway, it's just amazing what happened to Derek. And I interviewed Derek in Kamloops, and we're in Kamloops, and we're going to be doing the Spectrum Street epistemology at Thompson Rivers. And I've posted that interview with Derek, the first part of it is part one, on my YouTube channel, which you should take a look at as well, because that is an unbelievable case. And, you know, Derek, we need justice for Derek Pine, and that really hasn't happened yet. Anyway, that's part of the backstory of Thompson Rivers, even before we get into the Kamloops situation. Thompson Rivers University, for people who know the university, is in Kamloops. And one of the reasons why this false claim about the remains of 215 children being confirmed, and some of these children being as young as 3 years old, this is what the Kamloops Indian Band announced on May 27th, 2021. One of the reasons why that false claim has become deeply entrenched is because of this embarrassment of a university known as Thompson Rivers University. And they have been actively fomenting this false claim since it came out. And we know it's false because Sarah Bollier, who's the GPR operator, she's not an expert, as we're going to find out in Simon Hergott and the interview by Simon and me, is that you need to have expertise in geophysics to be able to do ground penetrating radar. And Sarah Bollier is a conflict anthropologist, doesn't know what she's doing. She's a completely incompetent with no qualifications. Anyway, because she didn't do the proper work, she found out after the fact, after she made this announcement to the band and the band ran with it, that 15 of the 215 quote unquote remains had previously been excavated by the Simon Fraser University Archaeology Department. And so it was false positive. So that raises the question, if she's mistaken on the 15, what about the other 200? Anyway, Sarah Bollier should have been doing background research, looking at what excavations had taken place. But because the Kamloops Band wanted someone who was an advocate like Sarah Bollier, so that they could do their spiritual ceremonies and everything, what they called pre-confirmation of the site, which of course we just have the knowledge keepers views on this. Like there's no substantiation for this idea, and not one child has been reported missing from the Kamloops Band. So this is all very implausible, but they're using GPR to confirm these highly improbable beliefs by the knowledge keepers. And Sarah Bollier is the one to do it because she doesn't know what she's doing. And she's also a person who engages in all these spiritual ceremonies and so on. And so is not objective, not as an objective scientific practitioner of this technology. So that happens in July 15th. We find out that it's not remains, it's targets of interest, it's anomalies, but that does not stop Thompson Rivers University from continuously perpetuating this falsehood. And they did this in September 2021. They had an exhibit by Johnny Bandura, which is called the 215, and it's 215 paintings of the children who are supposedly buried in the Kamloops apple orchard, and what those children would look like now if they were in the class of 2021. So, he has all sorts of personas that he gives to each of these 215. Anyway, I published this exhibit. Anyway, this is all just falsehoods and propaganda that TRU is actively promoting. Then, on the 2 years after that, on the third annual day of what's called Truth and Reconciliation, which is, to be honest, falsehoods and authoritarianism. That's what it's all about. Because it's all about making you accept this false idea, getting everyone to absorb it in society. Anyway, TRU President Brett Fairbairn sits down with Ted Gottfriedson and talks about the day they confirmed the Lisqueque, which is the 215 children. President Fairbairn asks about the community's responsibility to honor Lisqueque, the 215. And then Ted Gottfriedson talks about the community hosting the final resting spot for the children. And Ted Gottfriedson is the cultural advisor. He's on staff at Thompson Rivers University. So this university is being run by advocates. And then the following year, in 2024, so this is the third Truth and Reconciliation holiday, we have Ted Gottfriedson Jr. again sitting down with the chancellor. So this is the figurehead, the top symbolic ceremonial role of Thompson Rivers University, where they're talking about the confirmation of the Lisqueque and finding the children. And Dee DeRose says, as harsh as the truth was when the graves were discovered, this is all being done on the Thompson Rivers University website. And this is a massive embarrassment for an institution that is supposedly pursuing the truth. And we also have a calendar put out by Thompson Rivers University for 2025. And this has on the 23rd of May, the Squeakway, the missing, confirmed at the Kamloops Indian Residential School. So they're saying it was confirmed on May 23rd, 2025. And then we have the icing on the cake when Simon Harrogott, Kathy Drake, and I went to Thompson Rivers University on the 4th anniversary of the false claim. And we were accosted by Steve Pottle and his team. And Steve Pottle is the Director of Risk and Safety Services. He told us that we were on the first house of the Kamloops, and therefore it's inappropriate to be talking about the unmarked graves claim. And we told Mr. Pottle that thank you very much for letting us know that, but we're here to defend the academic mission of Thompson Rivers University, and we're not going anywhere. And with that, the midwits disappeared, didn't bother us again. We had a great session with Jenna and Hal. So it's kind of raises the question, why on October 15th did Thompson Rivers University decide to send me this trespass notice? You got to take a look at this trespass notice, which I posted on the wokeacademy.info site. And they're telling me that I have to apply to be on the campus again. This is notice that if I'm not, then presumably some kind of legal action is going to follow. And then the kicker is they tell me it is notable and deeply troubling that you attended TRU and engaged in these behaviors, which the behaviors were, they claimed I'm making a presentation on the unmarked graves, but I wasn't. I was facilitating a Spectrum Street epistemology session, which is needed because of all the falsehoods being perpetuated by Thompson Rivers. And so it's notable and deeply troubling that you attended TRU and engaged in these behaviors on the 4th anniversary of the announcement that unmarked graves were found at the former Kamloops Indian Residential School. And they go on to say, given your knowledge of the history of residential schools in Canada, we view your attendance at TRU on this anniversary as an exceptionally insensitive and harmful provocation. Anyway, my answer, you might be wondering what my answer to this is. Piss off, Thompson Rivers University. This is unconstitutional, what you're doing. You have continuously violated academic principles with what you're doing. You are not an academic institution. You are an embarrassment that is run by the Kamloops Indian Band and their associated Aboriginal industry lawyers and consultants. Prepare to be shamed. And that's what is going to happen sometime in the near future. We are going to be, taking Thompson Rivers University to task for what they've done with this. You would think that they would just not be so stupid as to push this matter, that they would just, kind of be quiet about it. But no, and that's an interesting question as to why we were there on May 27th. And now they've waited until October 15th to send this notice. Does it have anything to do with what happened at the University of Winnipeg? We're not sure. Maybe it has something to do with the 1BC documentary that's going to be coming up shortly, and Thompson Rivers University, because it is completely captured by activists belonging to the Kamloops Indian Band and their lawyers and consultants. Thompson Rivers is also a stronghold of the Aboriginal industry. Many lawyers on there are involved in various land claims kinds of initiatives. Anyway, this is just it just can't get any worse for this institution. And if you think that I am going to allow you to be part of the destruction of academic institutions in Canada, you've got another thing coming. We're going to be doing a lot more with respect to Thompson Rivers University. We're not sure. It's hard to beat University of Winnipeg, but they're an institution that's trying to get into the elite hall of shame and surpass the University of Winnipeg as the worst university in Canada. Have a great day, and I look forward to providing you more information on what's going on at Thompson Rivers University.